I'm talking to CJ Gammon, and he's from Adobe. What is your background and what are you doing right now? How did you get where you are?
Sure. So the Google project I did was actually a project I did a few years back at Grow Interactive. So I actually have a background in the advertising industry, doing a lot of digital advertising, specifically around display ads and rich media websites, um, so things of that nature. We worked with a lot of ad agencies as their digital partners, and now I'm more focused on the web as a platform and kind of honing in on where it's developing and where to look for cool new features and how they're going to be applied in the way people create websites.
Okay, and so you came from an advertising background. I'm assuming that was your major, like in college.
Yeah, so I majored in communication arts, which is more of a general sort of like liberal arts study of communication and applications in advertising. And I actually worked in advertising as a designer for a little bit, and then got more into the development side of things, and then started doing things like Flash websites and rich video-based Flash websites and games, and that migrated more towards the HTML development.
Okay, and
So.
then so what made you kind of decide, okay, I want to be a developer. I want to do this.
Yeah, there wasn't like a clear decision. It was more just kind of where my interests and my hobbies took me, I think. It was something I was always kind of playing around with on the side. And I'm more of a hybrid kind of designer developer. I consider myself more of a developer now, but I've always kind of done both. And whichever one I've done as my job, I tend to do the other more as my hobby. So there's kind of a mix there.
Okay, so what do students need to know, or what these creators that are going to South by Southwest who are more creative than maybe learning the HTML, what do they need to know or learn to do what you're doing to get where you are at Adobe?
Sure. Well, what my session is going to cover basically is sort of the graphical concepts that exist on the web and how you can apply those to both your creatives and your developers in making rich web experiences. So we're going to kind of do a broad overview of the capabilities that we have, and then look at different techniques and approaches that you can use in actually applying that to your creative concepts.
Okay, can you give me like an example of some of those graphical things?
Sure. So we're getting a lot of cool new features. Like we've got 2D Canvas and WebGL, and being able to incorporate those into your websites in more interesting ways. I think adds a lot of cool potential. People are using those things for games and demos, but I don't think people have really latched on to how to integrate it with their web content. So looking at and exploring different ways that we can sort of integrate that into our current web content, I think is kind of exciting potential.
Is it something that the average person can incorporate? I mean, is it something pretty easy? Because I know WordPress allows you to create a website now, like the average user. Is that something, those graphical things that you're talking about, are they easy for like me to do as a student?
Right. So, I mean, there's different levels, certainly. I mean, there are different stages. And I think as these technologies mature and develop, we're going to see them become more approachable too. There are libraries and other sort of frameworks out there that kind of make it more approachable from like a more novice developer's perspective as well.
Okay. So getting into what you're talking about at South by Southwest, rich web experiences, what does rich mean?
Right. So we're talking about when you think of a website, you typically think of something that's text heavy, maybe your vertical scrolling sites. But what I'm talking about is a more immersive kind of engaging experience, something that might even resemble a console game more so than your average typical website that you might think of. So, and it adds a lot of those kinds of concepts like gamification, rich video, those kinds of effects, bringing in all these sorts of immersive capabilities that we now have available to us on the web that you might not have traditionally thought of as a website.
And do you think all websites will eventually go to that kind of game-like experience? Do you think like business websites are fit for that?
No, I think, there's definitely really what it comes down to is the content, right? Like you really want to create the best presentation layer for the type of content you're trying to expose to your users. And that might be a rich web experience. It might not be. You don't want blogs having this sort of invasive experience. But I think if you're doing something that's more entertaining or more on the engaging kind of level where there's a sense of gameplay or fun with it, this could definitely be useful.
Okay. How rich do you think the web is right now? Do you think that we're barely
How
getting started?
So I think the web is broken up into a lot of different sectors right now. We've got like mobile, which is at sort of a different stage, slightly than our desktop browsers. But I think as the mobile hardware advances, we're going to see those kinds of capabilities kind of pair up with what we're seeing on the desktop.
Great. Um, so obviously then it can be richer. How do you think that mobile, I guess, is going to become richer?
I think just by getting better hardware capabilities, I think, and especially like things like WebGL support. I know Android's starting to get there, and iOS kind of has it, but they haven't fully enabled it in like the mobile Safari. But as those kinds of things, advance and we get the support there and the hardware capabilities, I think we'll just see cooler web experiences both on our mobile devices and desktop.
Okay. So what is the future of web? I know that was something that you had as part of your South by intro kind of thing.
Right. Well, I think, we're going to see these different features, not only these graphical features, but also the different sort of application features like WebRTC and the different communication mechanisms kind of integrated together to create experiences that we haven't even thought of yet. I think there's going to be really interesting developments there. And ultimately, the web is this communication medium, right? It's a way of connecting people all over the world in real time. And I think we're increasingly going to see that become utilized as a way of people connecting and sharing information.
Okay. Let me see. So what is the richness of the web produce? Is it, what is the ultimate goal of better experiences on the web? Is it better relationships with the customers? Is it more profit? Does it bring more profit because you have better engagement? Or is it just to give people a better experience? Just to entertain kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be any of those things. It really depends on what your goal is and what it is you're trying to achieve with the web. And obviously, it could be used for all of those purposes. I mean, ultimately, you want to make sure that what you're trying to achieve, if you're trying to sell something, you want to make sure that you're engaging with your user in an appropriate way, in a way that makes sense for what you're trying to achieve. But the web, I think all these new features and capabilities, it's becoming increasingly versatile in how it can be used. And I think that's kind of the key of this talk, just to expose those new ways that we can use it to engage people in ways we might not have thought of.
So how long do you think it'll be until we have, these great experiences on the web? Do you think we'll ever get to the best one? Do you have,
Right. Well, I mean, the web's constantly changing, right? I don't think it's ever going to really stop growing
yeah.
and stop evolving. And I think that's a good thing. But we're already starting to see little examples of these kinds of experiences pop up here and there, but they're certainly not the mainstream right now. So I think as it evolves, we'll start to see it diversify more and more and see these kinds of experiences being used where appropriate.
Okay. You're on a certain team at Adobe, correct? What is your team called?
Yeah, so I'm on the web platform team at Adobe. So we actually we have a group of people who actually work with the W3C to push new standards in the browsers and actually work on a number of browser implementations as well.
Okay, and so do y'all work like by projects? Like, what you weren't working with Adobe when you were working on Google's Uncover.
Right, that was when I was at an agency.
Okay. And so do y'all work on like projects like that for different clients or what is the product that
We
y'all?
so we do currently we're doing a lot of like little demos and things showcasing these kinds of features and how they can be used within the browser.
Okay,
So
and
that's the
so
kind of stuff we're working on now.
so pretty much anybody can use this Adobe kind of product thing that y'all are working on.
Right. Well, it's more in the browser, so it's in like experimental features and newer features that are actually going into browsers like Safari or Chrome.
Okay, and so okay, I guess my last question would just be, what do you hope that the attendees at South by Southwest would get out of your panel?
Sure. So my hope is for people to kind of walk away with this sense of awe in the web and its capabilities, and also some new ideas and how they can actually create cooler, more exciting experiences in their own projects.